When I installed this Torklift hitch last year on my car, it was the only aftermarket option available for the Model 3. There are a few issues with its design that make it kind of hard to use, so I'll show those issues and then I'm going to replace it with a hitch from Stealthhitches, which looks like a much better design, more like what Tesla uses on the Model X. This is kind of a long video, so I put timestamps in the description so you can skip to different sections of the video. On the Torklift receiver, the piece that bolts into the hitch, you can only start this bolt threading a few turns and then it gets kind of like bound up, and you have to use a wrench to keep going, and you can see it kind of loosens up again and then it gets kind of stuck every rotation. So rather than being able to thread this in by hand until it's almost tight and then using a wrench to do the final torquing, you have to use a wrench the entire time, which when you're under the car, this is kind of a pain. I contacted Torklift about this and they claim that this was intentional, that this is supposed to be some type of a resistance to having the bolt back out accidentally, which to me doesn't make sense because it's supposed to have a pretty high final torque value. It seems more like a misalignment between the bolt and where the nut is welded on. In any case, it makes it difficult to install, especially when you're under the car working on this. If you have an older car with a splash shield like the one shown on the left here, where you have to cut out an access hole for a hitch, I would recommend instead getting the newer version of the splash shield from Tesla, which is the one on the right, and it includes a removable cover for accessing a hitch. It was $130 and is easy to swap. There are 6 bolts and a series of clips to release to remove it from the bumper cover. To remove the factory Tesla cover, you just turn each of these screws a quarter turn, and then pull down, and then pull forward to release the cover. For the Torklift receiver, feed this up into the hitch, get the bolt started, and then like I mentioned earlier, you can only get it threaded so far before it binds up. You can see there's quite a ways for it left to go before you can fully tighten it. One of these ratcheting wrenches is useful. The only issue was for this size, it's a 15/16 wrench. It was too long, so I had to cut a chunk out of the wrench, and we will re-weld this on in order for this to fit and not hit the ground while it's tightening. Okay, so there's the Torklift hitch receiver installed. An issue with towing with the Torklift hitch, you can see here the location for attaching safety chains is not really very accessible. So it's so close to the bumper you can't practically get a like a hook for a chain on there. So what I ended up doing was having to make some bars like this that go up and hook onto the top. I don't know if you can see that. They kind of hook onto the top of the tube in the hitch up there. And then that gives you a few spots to attach your safety chains. It'd be nice if there was a more accessible location. I just had no luck getting the safety chains to attach to the built-in loops there. With all of these 2-inch style receivers, you always end up with enough get that rattle and play, which is annoying. So the best solution I found for this is actually this. It's a locking kit that includes this this nut that you put into the inside tube, and then this threads through and that kind of like pulls the whole thing together. Let me show you that. then the lock goes on the other side. And there's the wrench to snug this up. And then you can see there it takes all of the rattle out of it, which is nice either for towing, or even if you have like a bike carrier, it's nice to be able to secure that to the 2-inch receiver. Here's a quick overview of the Stealthhitches parts. This one came with has both the towing receiver and then also a receiver you can use for like a cargo carrier or a bike rack, that kind of thing. Here's the trailer wiring kit that came with the Stealthhitch. It includes these clamp-on style connectors, which, based on how small the wires are that go to the Model 3 taillights, I wasn't sure this would be a great idea. So when I installed my hitch last year, I actually found a kit that uses a clamp style connector that doesn't actually pierce the insulation or the wiring at all. I'll leave a link in the description for that type of harness. To get started in the trunk, you want to remove this lower trim piece, which just pulls up. And then this upper trim piece here is held on either end is one of these little push rivet things. Just got to take those off, and then it just pops down. And then unscrew bumper stops on each side. If you pull back the trunk lining, there's two 8mm nuts to remove from the back of the taillight. And then also unplug the harness from the taillight. And then the taillight should just pull straight out. In each wheel well, there are 3 little plastic retainer clips. Look like this. There's 3 of these. And there's also a T25 screw right up in here at the seam. Just make sure you don't lose this this clip that the T25 screw goes into. The other side of the car is the same. Underneath the car there are 6 10mm bolts to remove from the splash shield. The last fasteners to remove are 2 10mm bolts, one on each side underneath the taillight. I'm first going to loosen up the sides here though. Just pull straight out. And there's some clips on top. You have to kind of pull the bumper cover up and over those. Here's the wiring harness that's attached to the bumper cover you need to remove. This little gray tab pulls out. And then you push that down and pull this out of the socket. Remove this piece. There are 5 10mm bolts. Next step is to remove the 6 nuts that hold on the bumper. Next step is the 8 nuts that hold the hitch on the car. So looking at where the hitch was mounted, I don't see any signs of corrosion on the car itself. The hitch is started to be fairly rusty already, but it's pretty common with every hitch I've ever had. So here's the hitch off the car. It's been on there a little over a year. You can see there's a section there where most of the paint had peeled off. I noticed that a few months ago when I had the bumper cover off, so I added this, it's like a sacrificial anode they use in marine applications, just to hopefully slow down the corrosion a little bit. But this is pretty common. Every hitch I've had is rusted pretty quick in the Midwest. Again, the important thing is there's no corrosion on the car itself where the hitch mounts. To get the stealth hitch on, start with these spacer washers. So that part of the installation, attaching the bumper to the hitch, was more difficult for the stealth hitch as opposed to the Torklift. There's enough play side to side and up and down that you have to be careful not to get the bumper too close to either the upper or lower nut to make sure you can get a socket on there to torque it down. You also have to be able to get a wrench behind here to hold the bolt while you're tightening down the 3 nuts that hold the bumper on. I'm not entirely sure it's necessary, but I added a piece of Gorilla Tape between the painted steel and the aluminum bumper, just so there's less chance of electrical contact there, as well as use those nylon washers. On the Torklift hitch, those 3 bolts that the bumper attaches to are part of the hitch, so there's no extra work for that part of the installation. Here's a quick demonstration of the latch mechanism for the hitch. This little button under here, when pushed in, releases the latch or the locking mechanism. So you need to make sure this is rotated all the way clockwise, and then you simply lift either the ball mount or the rack mount into place, and the shoulder of this engages that little button and locks everything in. And to make sure it's not accidentally released, you just simply lock this by pushing it in. And that prevents this release handle from being able to disengage it. To release it, you simply unlock and then rotate this handle clockwise. Reinstalling the bumper cover is pretty much just the reverse of taking it off. So make sure you get this front edge of the splash shield tucked into place before you do any of the rest of the fasteners. Here's the stealth hitch with the bumper cover back installed. They did include this little rare earth magnet for the wiring, which is nice. You can clip it there, or when you have a trailer, you can clip that to the trailer. So to use it, all you have to do is remove the rubber cover, install, then there's a rubber cover on the other side covering the lock. Lock that and it's good to go. And what I like is the safety chain anchors are easily accessible. Here's a quick demo of hooking up a trailer with the stealth hitch. The key works as a screwdriver for removing the tow cover. remove the rubber cover. Don't forget to lock. And here's the reverse, unhooking everything. The receiver adapter is equally easy to use. So this is a bike carrier. Since I don't need this locking pin anymore for my other hitch, I'm just going to leave this attached to the bike carrier. Which makes taking this on and off even easier. Compared to the Torklift hitch, I've found the Stealth hitch much faster to set up, whether it be for a trailer, cargo carrier, or bicycle rack. It's also much easier, especially since no tools are required. For towing, you get a solid connection without the extra locking hardware like I used on my Torklift setup. There are also accessible safety chain anchors for towing a trailer.